supply chainers, wherever you are in the world. This is Sarah Barnes-Humphries with you today. Are you ready? Let's talk supply chain. Good morning, everyone, and happy Tuesday. Happy 4th of July to everybody who is celebrating today. And plus, we just had Canada Day on Saturday. So all the Canadians in the audience, I hope you had a great long weekend. Finally, Audrey Ross is back on the hot seat for Thoughts and Coffee today, which I'm super excited about. And if you guys don't know me, my name is Sarah Barnes-Humphries. I'm the founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain, as well as the Blended Podcast and founder of the Blended Pledge. Now, before we go any further, we do need to hear from our show sponsors. So say you're at work and all the lights flicker and then go out. You try to move and bump into something, you turn and you bump into something else. You can't work like this. You need to be able to see what's happening. This is how your inventory feels. Fastenal has unique inventory solutions that sends data to the cloud and help you avoid stockouts while not carrying all that excess inventory. So don't stay in the dark. Let Fastenal shine a light on the parts and supplies that keep your business running. Go to fastenal.com/LTSC and see how they do it. All right. Well, we've got a great show coming up for you. But first, let's talk about what's happening at Let's Talk Supply Chain. So we have a brand new episode of our Woman in Supply Chain series today with Sarita Willingham. And she comes on and talks all about her journey from corporate into entrepreneurship and how she is just killing it in her business right now. Plus, she's got some advice. So much great insights in this particular episode. So go and check it out wherever you listen to Let's Talk Supply Chain. It's episode 347. Now, on Friday, Eric Johnson is going live with LogTech Live, and he's talking about what LogTech can learn from FinTech. Now, if you cannot join this live, don't worry. Just head over to the invitation page or the event page, click the attend button, and I'm going to send you the recording afterwards. So definitely go and click that attend button because you're not going to want to miss that one. Plus, we have a LinkedIn Live event with WiseTech coming up on July 19th at 2 p.m. Eastern. Breaking barriers or falling behind. We've got Jean from WiseTech, Aaron from Janelle Group, and Mohan from Positive PC. Now, I can't give you the tea on this one, but there are so many great insights that we're going to be talking about. So again, go and click the attend button so that you don't miss a minute of this. I'm going to send you the recording even if you cannot attend live. Next, Blended Pledge has a giveaway right now. So if you're in Toronto, there is the Face of Inclusion Summit happening in September, and we are giving away a couple of free passes. All you need to do is go to the link in the comments, sign up for the newsletter, and then you could be one of our winners, which we will let you know in just a couple of weeks. It's going to be closing, I think, by the end of this week. So definitely go get your sign up done today. Now, Woman in Supply Chain Award. So Supply and Demand Chain Executive have a Woman in Supply Chain Award. And if you know somebody that you want to nominate for this, nominations are closing July 14th. And then we're going to find out who makes the list this year. Plus, we're going to end up going to the forum in November. They have a Woman in Supply Chain forum, which Let's Talk Supply Chain and Blended are sponsors for, and we cannot wait for that forum as well. So good luck to everybody. Get your nominations in. They're closing July 14th. And then last but not least, we've got Secret Society of Supply Chain. Now we are launching this in the next 2 weeks, and we are giving some major giveaways. So go and check out the quiz, take the quiz. We will let you know which group is right for you. Join the wait list, and then we're going to be in touch once we launch. But we are launching in approximately 2 weeks, so definitely go and check that out. And last but not least, we've got the Supply Chain Minute. So Mike Bush joined us this week to talk about freight fraud. If you haven't gone to check it out, go and click at the link and find out more about what's prevalent now and what shippers and carriers can do to slow it down, because it's a big risk in supply chain right now. Wow, that was a lot, but it's now time to bring up Audrey Ross. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
How are you?
Oh, we had a long weekend that for some of us maybe was not as restful as it might have been for other people. And that's partially on me because I have a week-long vacation coming up next week. So I was doing a lot of like prep and preparing. So, but I did get out with my friends yesterday for some gelato
Nice.
near Lake Ontario. So we got that lakefront view. So not a bad weekend all around.
Nice, nice. Yeah, we went bowling. I haven't been
Yeah,
bowling
you
in
did nephew
years.
time again, right?
Yeah, I did nephew time on Sunday, and that was Dave and Buster's and bowling, which was a lot of fun. But I haven't bowled in forever. And Allie
Right?
is just naturally good at like
Yeah.
every sport he touches. So he naturally won the game. But we ended up putting the bumpers up, which was kind of cool because that kind of really helped me.
Yeah, it does help, like a little bit.
All right.
Well, but
So
you
for
don't really
every
need them, but like it kind of helps.
well, yeah, the only thing he didn't want was that thing where you put the ball in it and then it goes down the
Oh
ramp.
yeah, come on.
Yeah,
No,
he was not having that one. He almost
no.
didn't have the bumpers. But anyways, so for everybody who doesn't know who you are, tell
Oh yeah,
everybody
sure.
who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I'm Audrey Ross. I'm based here in Toronto, Canada. I'm the import and export compliance manager at Orchard Custom Beauty, which is an award-winning business-to-business retailer, private labeling company, specializing in beauty tools, cosmetics, bath accessories, and we sell to retailers. So got retail on the
Amazing. Amazing. And we love to have you here. And you haven't been here in a while. So I'm just super
I
excited to be
know.
back.
I
Now,
know. I feel a little rusty though. Like I was, you get like, oh, I'm really nervous. And then it's like, oh, I haven't done this in a couple of weeks.
I know. So before we get into the poll of the week, I do want to announce our follower of the month. So I don't know if everybody knows this, but our follower of the month gets the choice of one of these lovely Let's Talk Supply Chain mugs on a monthly basis. And it's just our way of saying thank you for, engaging with us on social media. And so the follower of the month this month is Tony Smith. So congratulations. And I think we sent his mug a little bit early. He was supposed to send a photo. Hopefully he does, but we'll see it because we had Fred last month as well. So anyways, congratulations. And if you want to be our follower of the month, make sure to engage with us across our social media. All right. So now let's get to the poll of the week. So the question that we asked you, how do you prefer your content on LinkedIn? This was kind of surprising to me because I thought video was going to win out the day, but 78% of you, a resounding 78% of you, said text and image. So you want an image and then you want some text in the post. 18 or 16% of you said video, 3% said carousel, and 3% other below. What do you think about this? Is this what you like to see on your LinkedIn, or how do you prefer to get your content?
Yeah, I selected text and image. I think with LinkedIn, people want people's thoughts, right? Like that part of the space where it's not just like, oh, I'm just resharing this post, I'm resharing this video, and it's like thoughtless. I feel like LinkedIn is a bit more, people appreciate a more mindful commentary on what is being shared or why you're sharing it. And I think you get video in so many other mediums, that it's like to automatically have video on here, maybe, it doesn't make sense. Where I do think people like to, and by image, I think sometimes it's articles too, where it's like you can click through and read further, like the way we do Thoughts and Coffee, and you have the art, and then you can like click through to the articles. Or, when you share posts about the news, it's like you can click through to that video, you can click through to that, but on your time as your choice. So yeah, it didn't surprise me.
It kind of surprised me. I thought video, because everybody is all like video, video, video. You need to have video, video, video.
Yeah. That's probably statistically, that's probably what grabs people's attention. Like if you go to LinkedIn, the metrics are probably like, yeah, every time you put on a video, you get like this much engagement. But I think when people actually give you their preference, it's the text and image.
All right, let's say hi to everybody on my personal social. Brad, Angela, Jerry. Who else do we have here as well? We've got Juan, Ashraf, and Debele. Thank you so much for joining us, and happy 4th. Everybody is saying happy Independence Day, happy belated Canada Day. I think everybody's in a really good mood for Thoughts and Coffee today. All right.
All the North Americans loving that long weekend.
I know. So before we get going, I do want you to give us a bit of a market update because I think there's a strike. Is there not? I saw that on the news the other day, and I was like, "What?"
Small one. Just
how did
just
we not
tiny.
avoid this?
I don't know how they didn't avoid it. That's always the thing. Because when you do dig into these things, sometimes it's like, one of the more recent strikes we had, not this one, but with the federal workers, like you find out they've been in negotiation for like 3 years. You're like, how did you not just get this done?
Mm-hmm.
But when you work in private business, you have more accelerated timelines, I guess. So yeah, so a quick update on this. So you've got in Canada, we're importing about $225 billion in value of goods per year into the country. And not all of that comes to Canada. A lot of it now, because of some really interesting rail routing, a lot of goods, I think they said maybe 12% of goods are coming in and then going to the US directly. So we've got the ILWU Canada, West Coast ports are all in strike action. They've been on strike since Saturday. And they've got a great article over at CNBC that covers sort of the gist of, what's happening and why it's happening. I think most of us, I saw the National Retail Federation weigh in. I think I've seen, I don't know if I've seen from Retail Council Canada yet, but I think everyone can agree that a prolonged strike at this particular moment would be pretty, have a massive impact on our economy and what's going on. We are heading into sort of that peak season. Someone was talking about back to school goods, and I'm like, back to school, it's holiday. If you're moving, if you haven't got your back to school stuff at the stores yet, you're a little behind, and you should maybe choose air freight and avoid the whole port situation. But for the rest of us, it's like you're moving that holiday. Halloween's already moved. So your goods, your sort of major retail milestones for the last 6 months of this year, are going to be impacted. I sent a note to our team that was kind of like, if they're off for less than 7 days, it'll impact us by approximately a week. If they're off more than 7 days, we're looking at 3 weeks impact and delays, because once you have, when you have this kind of stoppage and you have the backlog, and it's unfortunate that we're here. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, let's hope that they come to a deal very, very shortly, so that it's only about a week. I mean, at the end of the day, you don't need any more disruptions, not just you, but like supply chain.
Yeah.
Supply chain in general do not need any more disruptions. So can we please, we are pleading with whoever is, doing these negotiations to get everybody on the same page so we can move our goods very quickly. All right. So let's get to the first article. So everybody knows I like a good hustle newsletter. This came out, I think, about a month ago. A lot of the articles that I picked for us today are about a month old. But the reason why I did that was because of some of the conversations that you and I have had on Thoughts and Coffee previously. So this one is about kiss your free returns goodbye. Now, we talked about returns, I think, a couple of weeks ago or about a month ago. I gave an example of a lady on Instagram who was given 130% discount code and told to keep the goods, which is all well and good. But then what does she do with it? And hopefully she gives it away to somebody so that we keep it within that circularity. But what's interesting about this one is that none of the retailers want to do free returns anymore. And the reason for that is that returns cost $10 to $20 just in warehousing costs. Like that doesn't even include transportation. And so it's a very, very costly endeavor. Now, somebody I was talking to on Instagram this morning says that it's never free returns and that returns have always been put into the price of goods. However, I think that's only the case with a certain few retailers, right? Yeah. Because if you put $10 to $20 plus transportation into the cost of a product, there's no way you're going to overprice yourself out of the market and people aren't going to buy your product. So I think it depends on who you ask around free returns, right? So 41% in 2022 of retailers are charging for returns, and that's up from 33% in 2021. What do you think about this article?
Yeah, I think it's at a key moment. I think, to your point before about including it in the price, I highly doubt it. I'm sorry. I highly doubt that retailers are including it in the price. I suspect that they were all doing it as like an operational cost. And then they started to realize like, wait, what's this millions of dollars? What's this for? Oh, it's for all this stuff that we haven't figured out how to actually, cycle back through
Mhm.
the system, right? And I think the cost of the returns, I mean, it's coming out as a business cost now. Like they're, okay, so they're going to apply a charge to the customer for these returns, but it still doesn't address some of the fundamental problems around overconsumption, the fact that these chains are not circular. So even though you're paying for the return and the return goes back presumably to the person who sold it to you, that doesn't necessarily mean the goods can go back into the flow, the sort of flow.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that they're being recycled properly. It doesn't mean that they're being reused. So I think there's still a lot of retail issues around
And
circularity and
questions.
sustainability. A
Mhm.
lot of questions, a lot of fronting and performance. But yeah, I mean, I think that the time for consumers to keep paying these, which they've been, prepped into. You've been prepped to have like, oh, I get free returns. Oh, it's just whatever. It's $15 shirt. I can just send it back. I don't need to. I think that was built up by the retailers, and then now they have to walk it back because they can't actually deliver on that. So I think consumers are kind of getting more of an education than they had before. They've gotten sort of a propaganda advertising thing, and now it's like, actually, this costs a lot of money, and you're going to have to start paying for it.
Well, and I don't think the retailers thought through, like, I'm going to buy 5 different pairs of shoes in different sizes
Yeah.
and different colors. I'm
Yeah.
going to try them on, and then I'm going to return them back.
Yeah.
And so it's not just one box. It
No.
could be 2 or 3 boxes. And if you think about that $10 to $20, not including transportation, across those 3 boxes for
Yeah.
maybe what, a $200 order?
Maybe.
That starts biting into that bottom line.
Oh yeah.
And returns in 2022 were 15 to 30% of orders. And they were $800 billion of product. Like those are massive numbers if you're thinking about the costs and how they're offsetting. I actually just recorded some exclusive content for the Secret Society of Supply Chain. So again, if you haven't signed up, go and sign up to the wait list about returns and how they're thinking about returns and their operations, their operational costs. But it's interesting, right? So you don't pay anything to return to a brick and mortar store, but this particular article was like, well, who wants to do that if you're shopping online, first of all? But DSW is charging $8.50. LL Bean is charging $6.50. Abercrombie is charging $7, and Amazon is charging $1. But if you think about the return cost being $10 to $20, they're still theoretically losing some money on what they're charging you to return.
Absolutely.
And again, the question remains, what are they doing with that product when they get it back?
Yeah. And this is a reason why with my feet, I can't buy shoes online. I'm a little surprised that shoe retailers honestly got into selling online with human feet. Human feet are so unique and different. Like, why would you pick that product? You're like, pick a sponge that like no one's gonna return it. It's one size fits all. But I think, and shout out to right, like you pick the thing that's like the most distinct about the human body, and then you're like, I'm gonna try to sell it now. But shout out to there is the Returns Association group in the US, and they have a lot of statistics and backup on this too. And so
yeah,
they're
so
a good
go and check
resource.
that out.
Yeah, good resource if you're looking.
And if you're a retailer, pick and choosy what products you want to sell online, just in case you have returns.
Think from the end and work your way back. This is how we do it. You got to think about the end result.
Not so much.
Yeah.
All right. I want to say hi to Sophia and Chic over on my personal LinkedIn as well. Thanks so much for joining us. All right, let's get to our second article. Now, this is not really a fun one. However, I wanted to pick this one because you are really into the Toronto fashion scene, right? You've been part of Fashion Group International for
10 years.
And so I wanted to bring this one up because it's very close to obviously what you do in supply chain, but then also what you do for fashion in general. And so US lawmakers have launched an inquiry into major apparel companies, including Adidas and Nike and Shein, over possible connections to forced labor in China. Now, this kind of goes with what I was talking to Jonas from Logword last week, where we were talking about forced labor in the Congo region because of the materials that make batteries and how we're actually bringing product over from there as well. And so this is not only in specific regions, like we are looking at this as a major global challenge, especially in supply chains. And this goes to thinking about, your tier 1, your tier 2, your tier 3. I mean, you might not know what that tier 7 is doing, and then you could be potentially breaking the law, as they've talked about in this particular article. So walk us through this.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Sarah. I mean, it's the overarching theme of understanding your supply chain to the nth last supplier.
Mm-hmm.
It's not enough that you're looking at the factory who you're partnered with to make the goods. It's that you're looking at where you're getting the raw materials from, and where they're getting the raw materials from, and where they actually came from, and is that the legal business name? And the due diligence now required and expected by lawmakers. It was sort of a sort of free for all for a while, and now they've sort of really been like, yeah, you can have 19 suppliers in your supply chain, but what is that, 19th and 20th? Where are they actually getting this stuff from, and how are they? What is the labor situation like? So the scrutiny is certainly intensifying, and it's not only in the U.S. Every country sort of making headway on these types of legislations, but they are addressing region specific problems. And I think, there's the Congo, the battery issues, the semiconductor supply chains are extensive as well, with a lot of different partners and extensive sort of factory leads. And then when we look at the weaker situation in China specifically, it's not so much the finished goods. It is literally the raw yarn, right? And it can be extremely difficult to track, where did you buy this yarn from? Because you just, where these threads or this, this tiny, piece of this process. So, there's a lot of groups out there, even in sort of compliance technology, able to sort of help you, and who are doing mapping and tracking, like Altana and some of the other ones. But it's not, you can't ignore it anymore. And of course, if they're coming for the larger, you're advertising about the larger Nike, Adidas, and if you're thinking like, oh, well, it won't be me because those are the big, no, it's going to be you too. It's everyone. So.
Yeah. And a couple of things that came out of this that I thought was interesting. They were talking about greater accountability and transparency in supply chains.
Yes.
But when we talk about transparency and visibility, we talk about it from a client perspective. We're not necessarily talking about it from an internal perspective and, maybe beyond into your suppliers and going down that route. And so I think when we talk about transparency and supply chain moving forward, we not only have to look at it from a client perspective, that they want transparency into their supply chain. And so they're using your platform to be able to do that. Or they want transparency from whoever they're buying. They also want transparency from who they're buying from, and et cetera, et cetera. And then also for you internally, just so to make sure that you're playing by the rules. Yeah. Because these are rules. These are things that you could get in really big trouble for. And actually, something that I saw on the news, I think it was over the weekend, was that there's new regulations in China, and they've actually put out a warning to U.S. citizens going into China because they've expanded the spy regulations. And so if we're looking at and thinking about where we're manufacturing the goods, I mean, obviously some need to be manufactured in China. You have to look at all sorts of different scenarios, but this new spy regulation is not going to help keep manufacturing in China if U.S. citizens are being warned not to go.
Yeah, and then they can't physically site visit, which is a key and crucial component to actually having full transparency and visibility. Yeah. No, these are big issues, and I think there's been a tolerance for a culture of hiding and of skirting around regulations, because the mindset for the last 10, 15, 20 years was like, well, they didn't have regulations,
and it's so not supply
why would I follow them? Oh yeah, it's not my company, because my company only hires this company. You're like, your company hires every single company that's involved in every single piece of this product, and that thinking of like, and really it becomes the crux of a few cultural pieces of, are you going to be in business and do a good job? Are you going to be in business and have a sustainable business that pays people well, that ensures growth in the community, that ensures economic empowerment, with some sort of equity or equality? So it's this mindset of business. And for the longest time, it's sort of been allowed to be like, well, I don't want to pay, my workers appropriately because it's cheaper for me to not do that. I don't want to do this because it has a cost. Like audits have a cost. They're worth it. It's worth it. It's a low investment cost to kind of understand and have that visibility, right?
Well, what's the long game? What's the long game?
Yeah.
Right? This is not something that you want in your long game, having, US lawmakers coming after you because you've broken the rules, because you actually haven't looked, down and across all of your suppliers and what everybody is into. And there's not really any excuse anymore because we've got technology. So just saying. Anyways, we need to get to our last article. So
we have feelings. We have thoughts and feelings on this situation.
We do have thoughts and feelings.
How about make
thoughts
a good
and
business?
Feelings and coffee. Maybe too much coffee. Anyways, so the US has led some trade talks with 14 countries. We've talked a little bit about this before in an episode, probably about a month or so ago. But what they're trying to do is get early warning of risks to supply chains being disrupted. So my big question about this, and this is great, don't get me wrong, we do need to be talking about these things. However, they're not talking about tariffs. They're really just talking about letting each other know if there's a disruption coming. And so if it's going to disrupt a supply chain of a certain product so that we don't have what happened in the pandemic. Is that even possible? Are we going to play nice in the sandbox and we're really going to, because if it's something that's country oriented, that's going to disrupt the supply chain, are we really going to raise our hand and be like, oh, that was us. Sorry. You've got a 6-week disruption ahead of you.
Yeah. I'm all for collaboration and standardization globally, right? So I think a lot of us are hopeful, right? Because these communications it does make business easier when countries are playing nice in the sandbox. It makes it easier for business for us to have, to manage what we're doing and not have to be concerned about, like in the last 3 years, you're like shifting. Right, DC, that face all the time. But it's like, it does make it easier. So IPEF is interesting though, because it's the US hadn't joined CTTPP, right? So they hadn't joined that agreement, which is maybe a more detailed agreement, and it goes into sort of tariff reductions. And I think most people here know that tariffs are standardized. Tariffs are easy to account for. They're published. You can see them. So it's funny because everyone's always like, oh, I need to reduce tariffs. You're like, the tariff is 10%. That's not a lot. And it's 10%. So you can consistently plan for 10%. What you can't plan for is these kinds of disruptions. So it's exciting to see what IPEF might come up with, at least on supply chain. I think there's 4 pillars in this, right? So there's 4 pillars. They're working with countries that are sort of in this Asia pact, sort of region. It's including New Zealand, Brunei, so some of the South Pacific as well. And these are all good things. It's always good when you get people on board, to achieve the same goals. So.
Yeah. Well, and it says the nations included have 34 trillion in economic output and 41% of the global production. I mean, those are some big numbers. Anyways, so that was great. Thank you so much for sharing that. I hope you all get a lot from those articles that we covered today, because again, as supply chain professionals, there's a lot of things that we have to think about, a lot of moving parts, and hopefully we've helped you out with that today. But first, before we go, let's talk about some of our upcoming events. I talked about some of them at the top of the show. LogTech Live with Eric Johnson, Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. Again, for any of our LinkedIn Live shows, click the attend button and I will send you the recording after the show so that you can go and watch it if you can't see it live. Wise Tech and I are talking about breaking barriers or falling behind, unlocking the future of logistics. That's July 19th at 2 p.m. Eastern. We've got the Woman in Supply Chain Forum in Atlanta in November. Remember, get your nominations in. And that's pretty much about it. So, Audrey, thanks so much for joining me today. Thanks to everybody who's on vacation today who joined us for this show. Have an amazing week ahead, and I'll see you next Tuesday.